if you went back 12 months, not a single one of them was talking about treasuring any Bitcoin assets, any kind of crypto assets. Now all of a sudden Schwab's doing it and Fidelity's doing it.
But is there room for everybody? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, listen, I think the people who embrace it the quickest are going to win the race. And I think those that don't embrace it, you know what they're going to do? They're going to die a very slow and painful death.
It'd be a proper hedge against maybe hope security or equities. The question is, could you see a 2 or 5% allocation? I was with a sovereign wealth fund during this week, and that was the conversation. Should we have a 2% allocation? Should we have a 5% allocation? If everybody adopted that conversation, it would be 500,000, 600,000, 700,000 per Bitcoin.
See the price of Bitcoin heading?
Higher.
How much higher?
A lot higher. My general framework from the highest level is human beings collectively, we own about $900 trillion worth of stuff. That's equities, the things behind us, real estate, precious metals, fine art, all of the things that we own. Half of that we're using as a savings account. We're owning the portfolio of companies or the art or the house to actually try and persist wealth into the future. I think Bitcoin's going after that market. It's going after a market of $400 to $500 trillion worth, and right now it's $2.5 trillion. So I think in purchasing power terms, Bitcoin can go up 100 to 200 times more from here.
Trump is going to spend more money, have a bigger deficit than Biden. It's just math and the priorities of the administration. And so I can see Bitcoin going up 10x from here to $1 million by 2028. Especially if we get a change in sort of the Fed and they come back on side and they do quantitative easing, they start cutting rates. And, as you said, Powell's term ends in May 2026. Everyone believes that Kevin Warsh will be the next Fed governor, and he's gone on record basically saying the Fed is not independent. The Fed should do whatever the president and the politicians want, which means print the money, give more of it to the system to act as stimulus. And so I see an acceleration of money printing and fiscal debasement in May 26 onwards. And that's probably when we get the sort of crazy runs in Bitcoin and other sort of fixed supply assets.
Thirsty Thursday. It's your boy Crypto Millie back with another one. In today's video, I want to talk about the aftermath of the FOMC meeting. And also let me know in the chat, what do you think about the clips that I just played? Seem like a lot of people are still bullish on what's to come for the cryptocurrency market. I actually really like Arthur Hayes' take as he was explaining where altcoin season could possibly be delayed until May 2026 upon the new arrival of a new Fed chairman, right? So that right there, I didn't even think about that, right? So I didn't know Jay Powell was about to, well, his term is coming to an end, and I don't know if he's going to go for another term or is he just going to resign, move on, who knows, right? But that is an interesting take, especially if we get kind of like chopped up from QT because Jay Powell continues to be stern with that restrictive policy. And I think at this point, it all comes down to the market really trying to price in a possibility of the end of QT, though a lot of people tend to still be bullish, even myself, because the market thinks ahead, right? Kind of like foreshadowing, right? So if the market can get any hint that we are going to end QT, that the Fed is going to start printing, we can start ripping at any time. A lot of people thought that yesterday was going to be, doom and gloom because maybe Powell wasn't as dovish as people wanted Powell to be. And the market just seems to want to continue to go forward, right? It looks like we are suppressed for real because the market really wants to explode, but it just needs that little sign of hope that we will be coming towards the end of QT. So the market really looks good today, right? We got some green bubbles. Bitcoin sitting here at 117,000. Ethereum here at 45. So let's actually look at our Bitcoin charts because we've been talking about this ultimate RSI cross here. And guys, I tried to zoom in as close as possible. I can't really tell if we got the cross or not. You be the judge, but we're like right there at inception. So literally Bitcoin wants to even go higher as well. And even though we are in a market that's suppressed by the macro, global M2 is still exploding. There's certain stocks at all-time highs. Coinbase is still on a run. What's the other thing that's actually gold is at all-time high. So it's a lot happening where you're like, this market just doesn't make sense, right? We're in QT. We still are getting suppressed by the Fed, even though we got to cut the language, the body language and the tone was a little bit hawkish. Yet the market continues to stay strong. And if we have a close this week in the green candle, that'll be 3 white soldiers and potentially back into price discovery. And if we can get back above this orange line on Bitcoin, that's even more bullish for the altcoin market, right? Because as long as Bitcoin can stay strong in the midst of the Bitcoin dominance falling, that's actually very, very bullish for our blue chip coins, right? You kind of see with like the pump fund meta kind of like slowed down. It's because of like the liquidity right now is flowing into blue chips, right? But don't trip. A lot of that liquidity will rotate back into smaller coins. I feel like whenever the altcoin season does happen, a lot of people is going to make massive amounts of money. I truly believe that. And again, just doubling down on some of the things we just looked at, right? Larry Fink talked about these hedge funds and then, wanting to allocate, right? Pension money, 2 to 5%. They're asking, should I put 2 to 5% in Bitcoin, right? And if we start to see these entities, these states, these countries adopt that same mentality, now we're talking about a Bitcoin hanging around 500,000. Can you imagine where Ethereum, where Solana, where our favorite BitTensor, Tau, our favorite altcoins will be with Bitcoin above 500K? Even if Bitcoin was able to hit 200K, our altcoins would absolutely fly. The good ones, the ones in the meta, the ones in the narrative. So I'm still, I don't see a world where you cannot be bullish right now. And as Eric Trump said, like, people who miss out on this on crypto, the infant stage of crypto, right? It's kind of like my battle with the pump fund and streaming on pump fund, because what if this streaming platform becomes the biggest streaming platform of all time? It's like, if you miss out on that golden opportunity, you could not just set yourself back, you can be setting your family line back by missing out on a generational opportunity here with cryptocurrency. So again, there's a 10% chance of a no change, right? Because Powell wants to be looking at the fucking data, but we got 88% chance of ease, and I think we get some job data back today. And of course, since Powell didn't commit to multiple Fed cuts, we'll have to continue to do what we do every month, right? Look at the PMI, look at the PPI, look at the CPI, look at the data, as Powell would say, to determine what's happening within this specific economy. But remember, crypto is global, right? And I know there's a lot of countries struggling with inflation. We're not the only country struggling with inflation. I was looking at the inflation chart for some of these countries. Oh my goodness, absolutely insane. But at the end of the day, I think there's a world where we do have an altcoin season, man. And I just wish that, I know a lot of people want it to happen now, but it's just going to require patience. I don't know if Bitcoin gets rejected here at this orange line. If so, then expect chop, right? I've said this before. As long as we stay below this orange line, there's a chance of the 30% correction. But those corrections are bullish. Now, if we lose some of these trends, like the 200-day moving average in the Gaussian channel, we lose some of those key moving averages and indicators, then it's doom and gloom. I don't think it's doom and gloom. I think even a 30% correction in this market, because Bitcoin is so sought after, it's still bullish. It will affect altcoins. Altcoins will bleed, but there's literally treasury companies buying altcoins, so they'll come and buy up the dip. In fact, most of the capital that has been flowing into crypto has been institutional capital. Why would people be flowing all of this institutional capital if we were about to tank, if we were about to, enter a bear market? These guys are quants. They're way more smarter than us, right? So obviously something has to be on the verge, right? And again, when you see this hype on the news, you got to be a little bit cautious, like, oh my goodness, is this the top? But a lot of the metrics, the fundamentals, the things that we look at are screaming that this is not the top yet. Yes, we are in the latter stages of maybe the 4-year cycle, but who's to say that isn't broken? Who's to say that this isn't a super cycle? And again, now you got to think about the theory based on what Arthur Hayes was saying, right? If the Fed gets replaced, Fed Chairman Powell gets replaced, right, with somebody that's aligned with Trump's vision, the market is going to absolutely cook, bro. Like the market's been cooking in an environment where we are restricted. Like people have still made buku money in crypto. Don't get it messed up. But there's still people who've just been holding these assets that are expecting altcoin season because some people are like that. They don't want to sell. They want to hold. They believe, and there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. This has just been a little bit of a different cycle, right? You can literally trade narratives and have been making money and still rotate it back to those older plays and plays just sitting there waiting for you, right? So guys, let me know what you think. Is Bitcoin going to 200K? Is ETH going to 10K? Is Tau going to 3K? Let me know in the comments. I would love to know everybody's opinions. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. I'm gonna be cooking all day today. I'm still working to get everything together with the possible launch on Pump, guys. So I'm putting things together. You can already see got the new lens. We look at a little spiffy right now. Let me know what you think about the current market, the aftermath of the FOMC meeting. It's your boy Crypto Millie. I'll see you in the next one.